Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Adam. Thanks for hanging out with me again today. And today we're going to start building the globe liner. Now, the globe liner has been around for quite a while, and it has that really awesome classic semi-truck look of the cab overs from yesteryear. Now, you'll still see some of these rolling around on the highway. Not very often, though. Everything's gone to more fuel efficient than the flying brick body style. And, a lot of these trucks came out in the 60s and 70s. And even up into the 80s, but they kind of started dying off at that point. So, you know, old school looks, and I'm going to give this one a unique look. It's not going to be box art. So if you guys are rooting for box art, sorry, it's not happening. It's not even going to be yellow, I don't think. Still not sure exactly what color it's going to be, but we're going to get to that at some point, a ways away from that at this point. So as normal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything out of the box, spread it out on the bench best I can. There's a lot of stuff. Kind of do a once over of it, and then we're going to start going through the chassis build. At this point, that's all we're going to get to in this video. The body work and a lot of the other detail stuff is going to take a long time. So you guys get to see the chassis getting built, and we'll kind of talk about the build. And after that, it's probably going to be a couple weeks before you see this guy back, because I've got the body to paint, the interior to paint, and an awful lot of detail stuff to do on it to get it the way that I want it to look. So let me be quiet, and you guys can get to the build montage, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright guys, so we have the rolling chassis. Now, there's still a lot missing on here. Fuel tanks aren't on, the mud flaps and all that stuff aren't, the electronics plate isn't on. I'm thinking about stripping some of the chrome off of some of that and, customizing it a little bit more. So there is still a pile. So here is the body. Sneak preview. But yes, there is a lot of parts left. So here's the electronics tray. That kind of goes in there. Something like that. Basically, the motor pokes through the tray. So I still have some black plastic parts for finishing off the chassis. And then the rest of the box is basically exterior. So you got the seats, seat risers, back panel, and then a lot of the chrome bits. So the bumpers, I think, are going to stay chrome. Some of the other stuff is going to get stripped. The grill is going to stay chrome. The tanks are getting stripped. The visor is probably getting stripped. So you have the tanks in here, running boards. Running boards will probably stay chrome. Like I said, I'm going to kind of just mix it all up. So we do still have our little bag of lights and windshields and side windows. So I'm probably going to get the base paint on and then kind of set it up and see what it looks like with chrome bits, and then I'm going to probably make the decision to start stripping things off. Overall, chassis went together perfectly. No issues at all. The only issue I had was my soldering iron did not want to solder the wires on here. These have the Racing motors evidently actually have real copper hoods. I kind of figured they were copper coated, but they seem to be real copper brush hoods, and they just suck all the heat right out of your soldering iron. So I had a hell of a time trying to get the wires soldered on there. So if you guys see the up close pictures of the motor, don't give me grief. They're solid. They're on there. They just look like crap. Definitely aren't the beautiful shiny silver solder joints you want, but they work. The transmission went together fine. The transmission is probably the trickiest part, and it's not really hard. It's just you have to pay attention because you're basically putting together one shaft, and then there's two pictures in each step. So one is it facing one way, and then they rotate it, and you're building kind of the other stuff on there that you can't see from the one side. So in the step, and like I said, it has the two images, and it has this little twisty arrow image to let you know to rotate that part around. That is the only hard part about this build, is just making sure that you actually rotate those shafts while you're putting everything together. Otherwise, everything just clicks and slides and screws right into place. I had no issues with fitment or anything. The only thing I had was this rod linkage got tucked up and stuck to my magnetic screw organizer. Hard word. And I built it with this one because that's the one I found. And it was too long. And I'm like, well, maybe something changed and they didn't change it or whatever. So I just kind of made it work. I figured, anything I could adjust the servo to adjust the shift point. And then later on, I found it because it called for it. And I'm like, oh, there is two. So I started digging, and it was, like I said, it had rolled and stuck to the edge of my little magnetic parts trays that I have. And these things are awesome. But the little edge is magnetic, and it just rolled up and stuck right to it. I didn't see it. Hiding stuff from myself. The only oddity of the chassis build is in my Grand Hauler, this had a centering spring, so it always sat up, kind of like the fifth wheel should. This one just wants to fall over. There was no spring, so I may source something. Shouldn't be too hard to find a little coily spring. I've got a box full of crap like that out in the garage. May be able to find something to set that up, just because it looks proper like that. It looks kind of lame with it just kind of falling over. So electronics wise, I used a 40 kilogram Amazon special servo for the steering, and just a generic 995 servo for the shifting duty. More than likely it's going to stay in one gear forever. You know, it's not like I'm going to be out there, long haul trucking with it and getting it into third gear. You know, I'll play with it a little bit, but more than likely running around the garage or down here, it's probably going to stay in one gear, and generally that's low gear. Motor wise, we went with the Yeah Racing Hatmoto V2 80 turn crawler motor. So this guy should really creep along in first gear and reverse. And I want that. I want it to be able to slowly back in and slowly back up and slowly back into a trailer, that type of stuff. You know, second gear is going to be more than fast enough to drive it around and enjoy it. And the third gear with these things is just kind of silly. You know, that's highway speeds for these trucks. And for the ESC duties, we're using the Hobbywing 1080. Obviously, it's not in here yet because it's still over here. Need to get the whole electronics tray and the divider so I can start mounting that stuff to that. But I can, with the help of a AA battery, show you guys. It runs nice and quiet. Now, obviously, this is run off 1.5 volts. It's going to go a little bit faster than that, but I don't want it a terrible lot faster than that. Still debating if I want to put the micro servo in underneath of here to try to do the trailer unlock. At this point, I may just leave it manual. I'm not too terribly worried about it. I would like to find some black rod ends to not have big white ones sticking that. Other than that, yeah, we're just kind of making everything else up as we go. Now, these wheels and tires are not staying on here. These are just for, you know, demonstration and the satisfaction of seeing it sitting on tires. I actually have a whole new set of RC four-wheel drive steel wheels and a little bit more of aggressive tire for it. So those have been, I put those together, God, 6 months ago. Actually, those have been put together for almost a year now. That's how long this truck has been sitting here. But I got the wheels and tires in, and you know, took them apart, looked at them, and they weren't going to go back in the packaging, so I just put them together. They've been sitting over in the corner. But I don't want to spoil the look of it for you guys. You guys will see that coming up fairly soon. Like I said, it's going to be a whole lot of painting, detailing. There is going to be some weathering on it. So, you know, a lot of detailish, prettyish work on it. We'll see how it turns out. If it comes out like it's in my head, it should look pretty awesome. If not, then we're just going to weather the bejesus out of it, and, you know, ugly's beautiful. I did upgrade from the Bago brass bushings, so it does have full bearings in here. I think it's 26 1150 bearings and 4 1260 bearings to do the whole thing. So it's a bearing hog, but you know, the 1150 bearings I have buttloads of. But that is going to wrap it up for today, guys. Like I said, I'm sorry it's going to take a couple weeks for the follow-up video to show up. But it should be worth the wait. So until then, everybody out there, you guys be happy, be healthy, be safe, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.